Welcome in to another edition of the Illini Cast. I'm Austin Berkland alongside Sonny Verma, and the good news of the Illini just keep on coming. It feels like since the Missouri game that the good news just hasn't stopped for the Illini, and that includes men's basketball and, of course, football. And it's just unreal what is going on in 2025 for the Illini. We're going to get to some of the Illini football portal additions at the very end of the show, but we have to dedicate this game, like the title of this episode, No KJ? No problem. That is exactly what happened against the Penn State Nittany Lions in a 91-52 win against the Penn State Nittany Lions. Sonny, how's it going today, and what are your initial thoughts on what this game was?
I mean, you said it, right? I say it all the time. There's no better time in history that I can think of to be an Illini fan. And the news keeps getting better on the basketball side and things keep improving on the football side. It's just, I can't imagine any Illini fan is watching this and just seeing what's going on right now and just not elated, like just not in the feeling like you're at the top of the world right now.
Yeah, let's get to that Illinois basketball game. So let's set the scene for a little bit. Before the game, we get a tweet from all of the media reporters of the Illini and in the college basketball world saying that Kasparas Jakučionis is out with a forearm injury. And you're like, uh-oh. We've seen the last four games against Penn State, and they have all gone in varying, horrifying fashions. We think last year, where Illinois had the big lead. I remember being in Bloomington, Indiana, going to see Indiana, Nebraska on a work trip, and then I leave the bar. Illinois is up by a ton. I check in on the phone, and Illinois is up by a few with a few seconds left. I'm like, okay, no big deal. And then, horrifying fashion, Penn State wins at the very end of that game. So you're thinking, all right, Penn State, the bad juju is continuing, KJ is out, and it didn't happen that way. Illinois was focused. Illinois' individual efforts by a few of those guys shined through. 91-52. This is a Penn State team that averages 84.6 points per game. That's good for 21st in the country, and that was after last night's game. So that was a little bit higher than that 52-point total brought them down to last night. So I just got to commend the defensive effort from the Illini of this game, Sonny.
It really was amazing. Like for me, I actually talked about this on my post-game report last night. Like now I'm at the point where I think I trust the defense more than I even trust the offense. The performance that they gave, again, wasn't a slouch of a team. Like Penn State, to me, I've watched a few of their games this year. I think they're like a middle of the road Big Ten team, not a contender by any stretch, but also not one of the teams that's only that's going to be risking not making it even to the Big Ten tournament now that the rules have changed. I think the bottom three don't make into the tournament. This was a very decent Penn State squad. And the fact that we pulled off a 34-4 run or something like that on them in that first half was an incredible. It's nice being on that side, right? We saw 0-30 against UConn, but the way the game started yesterday, obviously the news with Kasparas was kind of surprising to all of us. The team itself, at least for the first 4 or 5 minutes, looked a little disorganized. Like they weren't sure what they were supposed to do on the offensive end, but they all just really synchronized when it came to the defensive side. And that the way they played on defense really just kind of carried over on offense. And you kind of saw them score 91 points without their best player. I mean, just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. Whenever I tweeted out earlier in the game, I said this is going to be a rock fight. Just focus in on limiting the turnovers and rebounding the basketball. Those are the two things that you can control, and that's the way we're going to come out with a victory in Champaign last night. But then that offensive explosion just happened, and it happened on the back of Ben Humrichous, 5 for 9 from the 3-point line, 21 points total, 7 points away from his career high. It was a season high of 21 points. The emergence of Ben Hummerhouse has just been a sight to behold, and it's crazy where you think like some major event has to happen for an emergence like that. Like think of Terrence Shannon leaving the team because of the suspension, and you saw Quincy Guerrier really take over, really hone into his game. But it's amazing to see Ben do this within the format of KJ being there most of the time, except last night. You still have all the major players for the Illini, and Ben Hummerhouse is just upping his game. And I know Barstool Illini sent out an apology
I saw
uh,
that.
note for Ben Hummerhouse. And what is your excuse? I think my excuse would have been I just haven't seen enough of the season. I wasn't patient enough for the Ben Hummerhouse emergence. And this is a player that did a lot in Evansville. And I was just wondering if the change of athleticism against the top notch opponents in non conference play and then Big Ten play was just going to be too big of a bear for Ben. But he has really showcased that he can really adapt to what Big Ten opponents are throwing at him and these higher class teams in the non-conference play. So Ben Hummerhouse, I apologize. I wasn't patient enough for your emergence. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's your fault. It's just one of those where, like it or not, Hummerhouse came with the Marcus Domask narrative, right? And we saw what Marcus did last year, and we were hoping to duplicate the same thing with Ben this season. And so when he did, struggle for what the last 3 weeks or so, like we were getting antsy. Not only were the shots not falling in, but the eye test was telling us the defense wasn't there. But throughout it all, after every game, the one guy who just kept defending him was Brad Underwood. And Austin, I'm curious on your take on this. It's I really felt like obviously Ben was showing a lot in practice, right? The shots were going down, and he must whatever defensive responsibilities he has, he seemed to be performing pretty well. Because if he wasn't doing it in practice, he wouldn't be playing. Case in point, Kerry Booth. Kerry Booth
Yeah,
doesn't exist on this roster anymore. And to me, it's because he's not doing what he needs to be doing in practice. That really hasn't changed with Ben Hummerhouse. Ben continues to get minutes on the court, and to me, even when he was struggling. And to me, it's because Brad sees that, hey, the shots aren't falling on game day, but they're falling during practice, and he's still hustling out there, and he's still, playing his defensive matchups and whatever he's supposed to do, whatever his role is. And that's why Brad never really wavered on taking him out of the starting lineup, even though a lot of Illini Nation wanted to. It's just one guy is doing what he's supposed to do when the lights aren't on, and one is seemingly not.
yeah. I think a few things happened here where obviously the hustle has never quit for Ben Hummerhouse in game or in practice. Apparently, in Brad Underwood's eyes. The shot making wasn't there early on in the season, and defensively, I think he just needed to catch up to the speed of play. And I think the lapses on defense were impacting his shot making on the opposite side because he's like, I'm just getting torched out here. Like this is incredible. Incredibly crazy that I'm just getting beat like this. And I'm sure that messes with your psyche. Am I good enough to play at this level? And whenever you really start to match that hustle with your mental capacity of seeing the speed of the game defensively, that's naturally going to help your shot making because confidence is going to get higher. And I think that potion is starting to really take form in Ben Hummerhouse's game. So I think everything is coming to the table together right at the right time. And this is going to allow him to keep growing with the flow of this offense when KJ gets back healthy, whether that'll be next week or even the next game. Still limited knowledge on when he's coming back. But this was a game where even Kylan Boswell and Tomislav Ivicic struggled. Tomislav only 4 points. Kylan Boswell only 5 points. And Will Riley had 7 points in his first game where he started against a bigger time opponent. So I look at all of this and just think that Ben Hummerhouse can kind of solidify himself as the leader of the team in a situation like this. And that's just obviously awesome to see.
Yeah, the thing is, you also see how important Ben can be, and one of the reasons Brad must be sticking it out with him throughout that slump was knowing that a healthy, performing Ben Hummerhouse elevates the ceiling of this basketball team, especially on offense. Just having one guy at least who can just snipe it from 3 point land. We've got good basketball players on this team, but not necessarily guys who are going to shoot 40+% from 3 point land. We might score a lot of points from 3 point land, but that's usually because of quantity as opposed to, shooting a super high percentage. But Ben can be that guy that keeps the defense honest and keeps the defense from collapsing on a guy like Kasparas, especially if he's making those jump shots. Like, he stretches the defense out, and if the defense is stretched out, well, you've just given Kasparas a potential top 3 lottery pick. From what I saw in a mock draft this morning, that much more space to make plays or find the open man, and that just makes this Illinois offense even more intimidating.
And then that impacts a guy like Trey White, who also was a 20-point scorer in this game. And yes, we will get to Morez Johnson, but it's just crazy. 3 20-point scores, you got to go one by one to talk about their efforts. But Trey White, 20 points last night, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and then 3 of those rebounds were on the offensive side of the ball. So his emergence as just the playmaker when you need a playmaker was awesome to see. The dribble drives, the reverse layups, and the rebounding putbacks was just impressive to see from Trey White. I knew you weren't going to get the speed of a Terrence Shannon. That's really impossible to get. But Trey White's driving ability is definitely something that's needed on this basketball team, and something that's kind of lacking, even though you have all these 3-point artists. And even to Trey White's credit, he can also space the floor out a little bit from the 3-point line. He was 1 for 2 last night, but those drives were open because guys were making some 3-point shots and expanding the paint a little bit for Trey White. So Trey White, again, what a great performance, what a great dribble driver, and his energy on the defensive side wasn't there at Louisville, wasn't there at USC, has finally came about at Illinois, and it's mind-blowing to see how deep this team really, really is. I can't get over it. I said it preseason that this is going to be one of the deepest teams in Illini history, and so far, that's coming to fruition.
On a team that has a lot of pleasant surprises this year, I think Trey White is the biggest pleasant surprise that we've had. He's the guy who I thought would, by the end of the season, lose his starting spot to Will Riley. He didn't start off all that great, but since I believe the Wisconsin game, Trey White's arguably been our second best player, and he does everything. He's our most athletic basketball player. He's probably second only to Kylan when it comes to on the ball defending, and now he's scoring. He's scoring in bunches. I was surprised he's got to 20 yesterday. He's the quietest to 15, 17, 20 points every single night. You don't even realize that he's at the levels that he's at, but he's grabbing rebounds. He does everything. And this was just one of those incredible scouting jobs by Brad Underwood and that coaching staff, because a lot of people were down on Trey White after that last season at Louisville. But obviously, Brad saw something and he hit this one out of the park because, again, right now, I think Trey White's our second best player.
And I mean, you can tell the driving ability just from the amount of free throws. He was tied for the lead in free throws by the team. Morez Johnson, we'll get to him, but Trey White was 5 for 5 from the free throw line too. So that shows you that he was the aggressor of the team last night. And then of course he hit all 5 of his free throws that he was allotted last night. And then now let's get to the man in the middle of everything last night, and that was Morez Johnson. 11 rebounds total, 4 on the offensive side, 7 on the defensive side, 20 points and a block last night. Just a guy that in the early 2000s you would see on a Michigan State team, and you're like, I want that physicality on the Illini, something that we haven't really had. And Morez Johnson is that guy. Defensively, he brings it. Rebounding, he absolutely brings it. And offensively, his ability to put back shots and to really back down guys and be that physical presence is just unreal to see. And it's just another tool in the Swiss Army knife that Brad Underwood has at the moment, which is kind of getting heavy. He's going to need an extra strong belt to hold all these tools that he has.
Morez, I mean, I think Mike Carpenter said it best yesterday. I don't know. I feel like Morez Johnson might be every Illini fan's favorite Illini at this point with, just how well he's played. Usually when you have talented big men, when they jump up a level, especially to a physical conference like the Big Ten, you kind of see a deer in the headlights type of look to them and the way that they play as they're just trying to get adapted. He looks smooth. He's almost always making the right play. He looks confident. The team is just noticeably better with him on the court. I'm glad, Brad now plays more of the Tommy and Morez lineup together because I find it, I've said this before. If Will Riley's playing the way he should be, I really think the death lineup that Illinois has is Boswell, Kasparas, Riley, Morez, and Tomislav. I don't know if there's another team that can throw out five guys as talented as Illinois can, pending Will Riley playing the way he's capable of doing. But Morez, 20 points, 11 rebounds in 20 minutes. So someone mentioned on my other channel, like that, he put up Kofi numbers in 20 minutes. And that's completely correct. Like, I can't wait. He's so good this year. Just imagine sophomore year Morez Johnson. You're talking all Big Ten. Imagine junior year Morez Johnson. You're talking about one of the best players in the country, essentially, and possibly All American.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this lineup last night. All those players can come back next year. You're looking at KJ. He's going to go top 3 in the draft, top 5 in the draft. At the low end 5, that's crazy to think of early on in the season. But here we are. It's just unreal. But Ben Humrichous with the new NAIA rule can come back. Will Riley, I think we'll get a little. Let's get into a little bit of deeper discussion about Will Riley and where he's at and what his projection is. I saw that he slid to 20th in the latest mock draft, according to Gavoni of ESPN. And those numbers just keep dropping. If this was a stock, you'd be like, maybe we should start to sell that stock in terms of NBA draft stock this year. Next year, with another year of Fletch and possibly the physicality that he can bring, and like Randy said in the comment right here, Will has a hesitation on his step. Don't think about it. Don't force it. It will come to you when the real Will comes out. Look out. And that's exactly right. Like, I think that can come in flashes this year, but I just don't think it'll be enough of a flash for NBA teams to be like, yes, let's invest a first round pick in him. And I think with NIL and revenue sharing next year, I think he can make a pretty good sum of money and still train with one of the best trainers out there in Fletch. And I think that's the mindset that he has to take on this at this point in his career. Yes, he's a 5-star player with all the aspirations in the world, but I hope he's getting the right intel that says, hey, if you go next year, you will be a surefire top 5, top 7 pick in the NBA draft just based on your height and physicality. Right now, he just doesn't have that physicality, and I don't know if a team wants to invest in him to learn that physicality at this point.
The tricky part is, though, with the modern college basketball and college football world, is do you want to stick around if you're him? Whether it is to the NBA, of course, he can still make a decent amount of money, even if it's late in the first round. But he may just decide, and again, you said it perfectly, we don't know who's whispering in his ears, right? He could just be a guy who, like, hey, it didn't work out here. I obviously don't fit the system. I want to go find an opportunity somewhere else. And, he might be able to collect a decent NIL paycheck somewhere else. And, Brad Underwood may not want to invest a significant amount of NIL in Will if things continue the way they are. And he may want to give it to a guy like Costanza, right? Like the other 4 or 5-star that came to visit, who is kind of a bigger version of Will Riley from the tape that I saw. But it's not all negative about Will to me. I really did like what I saw from Will. The only thing that wasn't going down was his shots, right? He went 2 for 11. But in that second half, he was basically playing point forward. He was the one bringing it up court. He had a really nice block in that second half. Like, he's still putting the effort out on there. Like, you can tell, maybe the staff has talked to him and be like, hey, look, stop thinking about your slump in shooting. Just take care of everything else on the basketball court. You're athletic. Go play defense. Go rebound the ball. He had 6 rebounds yesterday. He had 6 assists. 7, 6, and 6 is a pretty decent all-around game. Like, again, the points would be higher. if he shot the ball a little bit better. But I do think his the other aspects of his game are improving a little bit. The shot's not falling, but he's still becoming a better player. He still makes some freshman fouls, I call them, where it's like, oh, no, you didn't have to jump there. But that kind of comes with experience, not just because Morez didn't go through that. The Morez or the freshman foul line doesn't mean that other freshmen aren't. Man, Will Riley clearly is, but I haven't closed the book on Will yet. I still think I saw a perfect tweet the other day, and I forgot who said it, so I wish I can give him credit. But the tweet was something along the lines of, "You need Ben Humrichous to make it to the Final Four. You need Will Riley to be able to win the national championship." And I thought that was just perfectly put.
You're right. You're exactly right. I mean, you look at what Ben Hummerhouse, what Will Riley did last night. He is hustling still. He is
Hmm.
having the right attitude on the basketball court as of this moment, and that's what you want to see when you're going through a slump. Some guys will pout. Some guys will have freshman mistakes, and it just feels like Will Riley is having those freshman mistakes, but it's not allowing him to wreck his confidence. I'd like to see the same aggression, even though he was 2 for 11 from the field last night. I do like seeing that rather than a guy who is overly timid at this point, because hypothetically, if some of those shots do go in, then hey, then you're back off the slump and you're still having, let's see, how many points did he have? 7. If he had like 15 with those 6 rebounds and 6 assists, my goodness. What we'd be talking about Will Riley's comeback performance for sure. But I am glad that the aggression is still there for Will Riley.
Yeah, and I was secretly hoping that with Kasparas out yesterday that we could see the Will Riley game. That didn't quite happen, at least on the scoring side, but it's because Ben just, I mean, he outscored Penn State for most of that first half uh, yesterday. So all credit to him, but USC is not a very good basketball team that they play on Saturday, and we haven't really heard anything on Kasparas and whether he's going to be playing. Let's be honest, like if his forearm is irritating him, USC is the type of team that you can probably be like, hey, we're playing USC, we're playing at home. Let's give you another couple of days off. We've got Indiana next. Indiana is going to be a tougher matchup. They've won, I think, 8 out of their last 9 or 9 out of their last 10 or something along those lines. And, hopefully, Will can get it going a little bit because I truly think that sometimes when you're a shooter, it's just nice seeing 2 or 3 balls go through the hoop, in a row. I think that happened for Ben Hummerhouse. And I really think that, all it's going to take is like one good half for Will Riley, where he makes, 4 of 6, where all of a sudden that muscle memory comes back, that confidence comes back, and he's already doing everything else well. And, he can slowly become the player that we all have the high hopes that he's going to become.
Absolutely, and I mean, I think the same can be said about Kylan Boswell, like against Oregon. Like those bunnies weren't going through the hoop, but then those 3 pointers just started raining down for against Oregon, and I think that can be the same thing that happens as well with Will Riley. Is that if he goes on a heater, then boom, that can change the entire complexion of his season, and then maybe he does start to think, hey, maybe I can go into the NBA right now. But I just don't think at this moment it would be wise for him to go into the NBA. And talking with Ant Wright last week on the show, he was like, if you have the opportunity, you need to go because you don't know what's going to happen to your body. After if you just don't accept that window into your future. So I think if a team is saying, "Hey, we will take you top 20," I think you do have to go if you're Will Riley. But I just don't know if those opportunities are going to be afforded to him with his play. Yes, the age of 18, he's younger on the younger side of things, but the physicality just is not there. And I don't think a team just wants to have their first round pick just wither away in the G League for a couple of years while they stay in the weight room, because that's just never the way to grow as a pro as of this at this juncture. You need to be out in the action with your own peers.
I agree. I mean, we kind of see it happening with Terrence Shannon Jr., right? Like he can't really get any run with Minnesota. And he's going back to the G League now. Maybe a guy like Will Riley, who is, like you said, only 18. Maybe a team's going to have a different mindset. Like maybe an 18-year-old you can just throw in the G League. The NBA, they for the most part draft on potential, right? There's
Yep.
no other reason Io should have fallen to where he ended up falling to. There's no way Terrence Shannon Jr. should have fallen to the end of the first round. Will Wright, he still has the traits. He still has the size, and there's still a lot of good tape from high school of him. And of course, the first game this year. Again, I still think at some point, I know I've said this before on this channel, he's going to win a game by himself at some point this season. There's going to be a Will Riley game. What I'm going to be curious to see is what happens the game after that. Does he continue, throwing up shots and having them go in, or does he struggle a little bit? Because keep in mind, Ben Hummerhouse had a fantastic game against Oregon. He struggled a little bit on the offensive side against Washington the game right after. And so I was a little leery, like, okay, is this a real change or not? Then you saw what just happened, last night against Penn State. And it's like, okay, now I'm starting to feel comfortable that Ben is finding his levels. No, he's not Damask. He's not, a star, but he has the potential to be a very good role player. And you know what? This team can use another really good role player, and I'd be content with that. So for me, it's like when Will Riley does have his good game, what happens after that? Like, what role is he ultimately going to play on this team?
I mean, most NCAA Final Four teams have their one, maybe two stars, but then their role players are what other teams' major star would be. And I think that's where Ben Hummerhouse could be. If you look at the lower end of a Big Ten team or an ACC team, Ben Hummerhouse would probably be their best player and have all hopes and dreams tied to what Ben Hummerhouse would be doing. With Illinois, that's not really the case. He can have an off game and Illinois can still win. But whenever he does have his star potential games, like those flashes, like he had against Oregon, like he had against Penn State, that's where it turns Illinois from a Sweet 16 team into a Final Four team, is those role players just really showing up in big ways. And that's just where Illinois is at with their depth and all the toys that Brian Underwood has available to him. And I mean, that's not even talking about Dre Gibbs Lahorn, who had 9 points, wasn't the most efficient, 2 for 9 from the field, 1 for 7 from the 3-point line, but he had 9 points off of the bench in 20 minutes. I mean, that's just unreal that a guy like Dre is on the bench for a long stretch of the time, even with a guy like KJ out of the lineup. It's just remarkable to me what that is. And then Kylan Boswell, he had 6 assists and 5 rebounds as well. Like, he was doing a lot of good things as well without scoring the basketball. So these role players for Illinois are truly having a moment, and you can't really rely on the role players, but if Trey White keeps doing what he's doing, when KJ gets healthy and he's doing what he's doing, the star power of this Illini basketball team can be just enhanced totally with a guy like Will Riley coming in and playing some flashes of what he can do. So this team is just full of depth and it's unexpected. Like I said in the last episode, Sonny, I would not want to be a scout for a team going up against Illinois. If I'm Indiana scout, I'm like, guys, who's the lead on the depth chart after KJ? I don't know. Like, double team everybody in case just one of them goes off. I don't know. Like, that's kind of where Illinois basketball is at right now, and it's amazing to be a part of.
It's a wonderful feeling, and I do want to give credit to Check It Out's comments about Will is gaining confidence and playing tough D, feeling cautiously optimistic about Will. And that's kind of where I'm at because, look, I played basketball through high school, right? So even if I did nothing during a game, during the week when we're practicing and when we're looking at film, I know Brad, Orlando, the staff is pointing out the tape, Will's tape, and saying, hey, great job hustling back for this block right there. Will, you're really improving every single day on your defensive effort, man. Look, don't worry about the shots. The shots are going to go in. We really like how you're growing as a player. And I think that's very important mentally. Not that I question Will's mentality in any sort of way, but just a constant reassurance that we know Brad gives because he did it with Ben Humrichous, for the last 3 weeks, and he's not going to stop doing that with Will Riley too. Again, if Will stopped playing, then we would know that he's not performing in practice either. But obviously, in practice, he's playing pretty well, and he's talked about it in his post game press conferences that hey, just keep shooting, just keep the shots will fall. And for me, it's just nice to see that he's still, able to do everything else. So you brought up Kylan Boswell. Boswell had to play a different role yesterday, right? Usually he's the two guard in our offense with Kasparas handling the ball, but yesterday Kylan was the distributor. He's the one who had the ball in his hand for the most of that first half. 5, 5, and 6, solid numbers. He hasn't shot well all season long. 2 for 8, that's just continues to be something that hopefully he'll regress back to his average and improve as the season goes along. But Dre Gibbs Longhorn, the energy he brings every time he's on the basketball court. I think it was Philip who is in the chat a lot with Alina Castan, Locked on Alina. He mentioned in our Discord, like, hey, bring DGL in early in that second half, just because the team looked lethargic. And that's just kind of the role that he plays. He's the guy who comes in and he's looking to play or make plays immediately. And the energy and the hops that this kid has. I mean, I feel like at least every other week he's got some block that he has no business making that ends up on some defensive highlight reels. And, as you said, it's just all these role players are stepping up. And it's nice to see it. And now the nation is noticing it. Last week, I grabbed Illinois plus 900 to win the Big Ten Conference. I thought that was ridiculous, from all the Big Ten games I've watched. As of this morning, it was plus 260. So, I mean, the odds are obviously moving in our favor. Like, the country is seeing, after that Oregon game and now this Penn State game, we all saw the stat yesterday. Illinois has 230-plus point victories in the Big Ten Conference already early in the season, and the Big Ten Conference, like the rest of the Big Ten Conference, has 2 combined. This team is good.
They are. Let's go through some comments. Kevin Humbird, thank you for watching. Morez was a beast. Absolutely, he was. He was a beast. I think that's the perfect way to describe him in his performance last night. Jason Long says, "Let's go. We are a ton. We are a ton and very deep. Bring on anyone and everyone." I mean, Illinois is number 7 in the net at this moment, and number 5 in KenPom, something crazy like that.
So, Austin,
I mean, yeah.
how big is that Illinois Duke game going to be now?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have 2 top 3 picks, KJ against Cooper Flagg, too,
And
adding that storyline.
Duke might be the number 1 team in the country by the time that game rolls around. The ACC is not that tough this year. Cooper Flagg is, playing out of his mind over the last few games. And that game in Madison Square Garden, if Illinois continues to play the way that they're playing right now, and if Duke again is they could be the top team in the country by then. Illinois, if they continue to play the way they're playing, could be a top 7, maybe top 5 team. That game's going to be huge. And the fact that it's in MSG, it's going to get a lot of, playtime on TV, a lot of hype going into that game. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee and Auburn, I'm sure those teams will eat themselves alive with that as SEC.
Exactly.
And then Iowa State will eat themselves up with the Big 12. I don't know if they played Arizona or not. That can be a loss. And then there's Duke in that extremely lethargic ACC, uncharacteristically lethargic. Like, you're looking at a North Carolina team that might miss the NCAA tournament, which that's crazy to think of as well. So yeah, Illinois Duke could be a 1 versus 5, 1 versus 6 matchup in Madison Square Garden, which is awesome. And then that net ranking, like I was talking about, is up there. The KenPom ranking is top 5, top 7 as well. This team is being looked at analytically now as one of the top teams in the country, and that's kind of how those bracketologists like to look at things whenever they're looking to fill out their brackets. Are you top and adjusted offense? Are you top and adjusted defense? And Illinois is firmly up there right now. Their defensive numbers are strong. I I haven't seen what their adjusted offensive numbers look like, but with the way they shoot the 3 pointer, I mean, that can be a very efficient way to score a ton of points. I mean, 109 points was it again, or how many points was it against Oregon, and then 91
Penn State.
against Penn State? Yeah, I mean that's a lot of points in Big Ten play. Something that you would scoff at if you were to say, "Hey, Illinois is going to score 90 plus points in close to back to back games in the Big Ten." You'd be thinking I'm crazy 5 years ago, but now it's just kind of the norm. Um, it's just awesome.
Yeah, I mean the.
Alexander,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
You first listen to Alex because Alex is a very smart individual. If you're watching this, we have 16 people watching and 10 likes. The math isn't mathing, Austin. So let's get those likes up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Austin and I go live at least once a week. We try to make it twice a week, and this is a long form. We talk everything that's going on in Illini world. And I forgot what I was going to say.
And subscribe to Armchair Illini on Twitter, Facebook,
That's
and the Gram as well, because Alex and Kirkland are pumping out a lot of great written content, uh, talking all things, every recruit that comes into town, every commitment on the transfer portal side for football, game analysis as well. In the written form, Armchair Illini can't be beat, and it's free. So just uh, keep punching in their content into your smartphone, and you'll be a well-educated Illini fan out there. Check it out. Seven back saying it was awesome how Penn State barely had any rebounds on either side of the court. Uh, you are right. I mean, you look at their rebounding totals: six on the offensive side, 26 on the defensive side, 32 total rebounds. Comparing that, defensive rebounds for Illinois, they had 38. So just in defensive rebounding alone, they out rebounded Penn State. You had in 19 offensive boards, 57 rebounds total for the Illini. And that's just a calling card of Brad Underwood. That's the Pizza Hut parking lot mentality that he likes, always bringing the fight down in the paint. And that's what Illinois is doing, whether you're a guard, whether you're a forward, whether you're a big man. You will be on the offensive boards and you are hustling for that ball. Because there are a lot of second chance opportunities that Illinois has gotten this season. And I love that as an identity because that stuff travels. It doesn't matter if you're on the home side or the road side. If you're hustling for boards and second chance opportunities, defenses will have to scatter to find the ball.
And let's give credit to Ben Humrichous. You know, before I never really jumped off the Ben wagon, but for me, the biggest frustration I had with Ben was just his inability to rebound the basketball. Like a guy that his size playing the fourth spot should have more than one or two rebounds a game. I believe in the last two games, he has 15 rebounds combined. And I think Brad talked about it in the postgame last night. He said that, you know, he was always in the right position and he's always looking to box out. And we had to have a conversation with him and say, hey, just go up for the rebound too. And him, you know, he almost got his double double yesterday. I was rooting like heck for it, but he ended up falling one rebound short. But I mean, if he's another guy who can give you 5, 6 rebounds a night, you know, again, we know Brad and this new coaching staff, they play the analytics card hard, very, very hard. And, you know, rebounding the basketball is huge. You know, giving your team multiple opportunities is huge when it comes to that side of the basketball world. And so, you know, it's we got to give credit to Ben. You know, Ben's one of those guys who has heeded the message, and you know, maybe that's contributed to his success on the offensive end. You know, just him feeling like he's contributing. You know, he must have heard all the noise about people wanting him to get benched and all that kind of stuff, but just his all-around game is getting better, and I don't think it's by accident. This whole Illini team's getting better.
One guy on Penn State that I really just want to tip my hat to is Yannick Conan Niederhauser. He outblocked both teams.
Yeah.
He had 7 blocks. Penn State, outside of Yannick, had 0 blocks. Illinois, as a team, had 6 blocks. That performance in the first half by Yannick was just unreal, and I was like, this is going to be a long freaking day if he does his best UConn impression and Illinois just keeps trying to go after him. But that really was not the case. But I just want to give a quick tip of the hat to that Penn State player right there, the new Northern Illinois transfer. What a performance that he had in that first half to at least make a lot of Illini fans sweat at the moment.
Yeah, he was incredible. Illinois got lucky with Ace Baldwin Jr. obviously having some injury issues, and then going down with 30 seconds left, or 30 seconds into the game, he gets hit by Kylan, and
That
he just
Kylan Boswell shoulder, that is like a safety
that's what I'm
coming
saying.
at you. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's a football guy coming at you the way he's built. And Ace goes 0 for 6 in 15 minutes, and you saw him emotional in that second half, so he is hurting a little bit. The other kid was it Puffy Johnson on their team. He was a starter. He didn't end up playing at all yesterday,
Yeah.
so Illinois did get some breaks, but again, their best player was gone. So kind of to circle back to the conversation we're having before, the AP ranking really doesn't matter. It doesn't
No.
matter if Illinois jumps from 22 to 13. It's only for people like you and I or other fans to celebrate. Brad knows what matters is, Ken Palm, the net ranking, stuff like that, because he talked about it. Basically he knows, you know, he doesn't want to beat a team by 39 points. I'm sure he respects, the opposing coach and whatnot, but that's what impresses the algorithms, and so I think Penn State will probably be a Q2 victory, having a 39-point win over a Q2 team. That's going to look good come March when seeding comes into play. And so that's what Brad plays to. And again, that just shows you just kind of how he's always kind of in front and just looking at the future of college basketball, not necessarily what the modern game is looking for.
I mean, you got to stack wins too in this Big Ten because this Big Ten is kind of top heavy at the moment. Like there are a lot of teams that have a lot of questions on their roster. Rutgers, they're not the team that everyone thought they were. Michigan and Michigan State are kind of your top two teams where you're like, all right, you got to get wins there to really get another uh, top tier win opportunity. Michigan number 11 in the net ranking, pardon me, and Michigan State number 18 right now. Illinois is at number 6. They're behind Florida, Houston, Tennessee, Duke, and Auburn. So again, that Madison Square Garden game right now would be 2 versus 6 in the net ranking, and then in Ken Palm it would be number 1 versus number 7. That's the kind of matchup we're talking about there. But yeah, the rankings say that Michigan and Michigan State are going to be your next opportunities if you want to get a number 2 seed or maybe even a coveted number 1 seed if you dream a little dream for this Illinois basketball regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to do another show before that Indiana game, but I'm kind of paranoid about it, just because they've won so many. I think it's 9 out of their last 10. We're clearly better than them, in my opinion. I've watched at least 4 or 5 Indiana games this season. They're very disorganized, but they're playing. I think we're playing in Bloomington, right? I believe the
Yeah.
next. Yeah, so it's just having a road game there at Indiana where they're starting to play a little bit well. I think that's going to be uh, I know their quadrant ranking can't be that high right now, but I do think that that's one that's going to climb as the season progresses, and so I think that's going to be a huge game. And hopefully USC is not a trap game because we need, as you said, to stack wins. But my eyes certainly are on the Hoosiers right now.
I mean, this next stretch of games after USC is definitely giving Illinois some trap vibes. You have Illinois in Bloomington on Tuesday, January 14th. Then you turn around and go up to East Lansing on Sunday to take on the number 16 team in the country, the Spartans. Then a team that Illinois has always had trouble with, and that's the Maryland Terrapins. They come to Champaign on January 23rd, and then you have Northwestern where you're trying to get a revenge game in Champaign. So that's your next stretch of games after USC. That's not an easy stretch at all. So I think this is going to be what defines you. Plus, you don't know what the health of KJ is. Is it truly just a nick where it's like, okay, one game, set out, put ice on it, he's back full strength? Or are you going to be losing a full week of him where you have a few games in a row where that's very, very difficult?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be the key right now, just to see the health of Kasparas. The fact that he shot her, I think I know he was at shoot around, but he didn't have anything wrapped. So that kind of
Mhm.
tells me it couldn't be or it shouldn't be something too significant. Again, if we have to sit him against USC, I still think that the rest of the guys are still a better team minus Kasparas than what the Trojans are going to throw out there. But we obviously need him back, especially when the stretch that you just mentioned is next up on our schedule. It's not going to be easy, and the thing is, with this team so young, on some nights we're going to be beating the number 9 team in the country by 30 plus points and look unbeatable. But also, because of the inexperience, I do think that we are at risk of losing games that we just shouldn't lose. And so that's why it's good to stack these W's now. And, just because all of a sudden, I hope it's not USC, but even if it's like Indiana, how Philip and Charles in the chat are saying, yeah, they've looked good against bad teams. But what if Illinois just happens to have a bad performance? And again, it's not because they're a bad team, but it's just because they are a younger team and they struggle. That's what I'm just kind of leery of. But the Big Ten is in grasp. I think it's us or Michigan at this point. Purdue's lurking there as they should be, but I think it's a two-team race, and quite honestly, I think we're just a better version of Michigan. So the division. Go ahead.
I mean, the deeper that the Big Ten gets, the more these losses could happen to any team. I don't care how dominant you are. I mean, Kansas had one against I forgot who it was a couple weeks ago where they fell apart and they lost. And you look at the NBA even like there are teams that are way better than other teams that just happen to lose on a certain night. That'll happen, and the more pro professional college basketball looks, the more these kind of games will happen as well. So I think that's just got to be a fact that Illinois fans have got to realize is that there will be a loss in here. Yes, it will suck in the moment, but you got to think bigger picture. That loss could be against USC, and that loss could be against Maryland coming up. That loss could be against Northwestern in home or against Nebraska on the road, which is a tough place to play at. So there's all sorts of opportunities for losses on this schedule, even with how dominant Illinois has looked. All it takes is, again, one bad performance and another star performance by the opposing team, and that's going to happen a time or two. Look at Tominaga. Gave Illinois all that he could handle, they could handle last year, and it's going to happen this year in conference play as well. But yeah, let's get to some of those comments. Indiana's beaten teams that have been playing terrible. Maybe Illinois has as well. Oregon hasn't looked phenomenal after their win against Oregon. And then Charles Johnson said, yeah, they look like bleep against USC for most of the game. They did. And all it took was Claude going out of the game with foul trouble for Indiana to really seal that game and showcase Ballo's physicality, which that's a matchup that I'm really excited for, is Morez Johnson going up against a guy like that at times and seeing the European influence of Tomislav Ivicic going up against a guy like that. If he's scared of the moment, if he's physical with him as well, that's going to be exciting to see as well for Illinois' big men going up against an opponent like Indiana.
Yeah, and it's just one of those. I'm kicking myself that I let myself fall for that Indiana hype, and I think I projected them to finish third or something like that in the conference when I knew fully well that Mike Woodson's not a good college basketball coach. Now I said that I'm jinxing the Illini and watch them lose on Tuesday, but it's just they're a team who I think when it comes to college basketball players, they've got the most talent of anybody in the conference, but they don't play well together. They're not coached well. It's a team that I'm not even, when it comes to winning the Big Ten conference, as I said, I think it's us or Michigan with maybe Purdue. That take a look at the last week that we of Illinois schedule. The conference can be decided that last week. That's going to be must watch TV. But I'll tell you, I'm not worried about Indiana being in that race at all.
No, I mean, I said it during the transfer portal window on the show, Sonny. I said, uh, you gave Mike Woodson a bunch of chess pieces, and he can only play checkers with them. And that's coming true. I mean, yes, they've won some games, but it hasn't looked pretty. It hasn't looked like a team that's showcasing domination by any stretch, like Illinois has to this point. Could Illinois lose to Indiana? Could Luke Goody really get hot from behind the three
Oh,
point
that'd be
line and,
annoying.
and sink Illinois? Yes, that would be annoying as hell, but it could happen. But I truly feel like Illinois has the coaching matchup there. So, yeah, I think that's where I'm at on this particular matchup of Illinois and Indiana coming up. But, Sonny, we do have a little bit of football news. Illinois went ham on the transfer portal today, sealing the commitments of Keelan Crimmins, an all Big Ten punter. Davin Stoffel, a sophomore from South Dakota State. He's a tight end. And first team All Big Sky Conference from Idaho, Aiden Napick. What a great run of transfer portal additions, and to still maintain the stability of keeping Xavier Scott, keeping J.C. Davis in the fold, and keeping Gabe Yakis as well. I mean, just the amount of good news for Illinois football and the ability of Brett Bielema to really find the holes and patch them up is just undeniable. It's fascinating to watch. It's fun to watch, and Illinois is running like a Fortune 500 company now instead of a small mom and pop shop like they have been years ago.
The culture is incredible. And when I was looking at that Aiden kid, because we were assuming that JC would be gone. Like, I think Aiden was probably like second or third on my power rankings of who I wanted to replace JC next year. The fact that we got JC back and Aiden decided to still come back or come to Champaign surprised me in the most pleasant way. Like, we're talking about not only, all five starters coming back, but just the depth that we're basically bringing in. I'll take Aiden. Wigginton, I think he committed to Colorado now, but he had lost his job. We replaced a guy like that with Aiden, who I think, could be the superior player. We had a big weakness, obviously, and Alex, if he's still watching, in our group chat, like he'll mention all the time about our punting, especially in that bowl game. Why don't
Yeah.
we just go ahead and get the best punter available? And that's exactly what Brett Bielema did, and we got our first wide receiver in that 2026 class, which is going to be huge, right? I mean, we won 8 games 2 years ago. We just won 10 games this year. It's the 2026, 2027 classes where you really want to see the results from recruiting, that you got from the seasons in the past. So, getting a top 16 in-state kid, a wide receiver who I believe had Iowa and Minnesota interest, I think was a great start. I kicked off the show saying this. I really feel like if you're watching this, obviously you're an Illinois fan. You got to be feeling good right now, and it's no matter what sport that you're talking about. Brett Bielema, Brad Underwood, thanks to Josh Whitman, we're all in a really good place.
Yeah, I mean, and Davin Stoffel, he chose Illinois over Bill Belichick in North Carolina, which is a crazy sentence to say. But yeah, another guy with Power Four traits coming in, having 2 years of eligibility at that tight end position. Mix that with Cole Rusk, who you got from Murray State last year, who had the season-ending injury, who was supposed to be the star tight end. That tight end room has rebuilt itself rather quickly after losing Henry Boyer to the portal, and you lost one other guy. But that is just, again, the ability to quickly fill holes whenever you get them, and finding guys that fit your system. That's what Brett Bielema has done a very, very good job with. And again, first team All Big Sky guy in Aiden Napick, and Davon Grant. You're the guy from DeKalb that you got again over Minnesota and Iowa. If you and Wisconsin, if you want to keep where the program is at right now, you've got to out recruit those kind of cohorts. And Brett Bielema has done that better than any coach I've ever seen at Illinois, outside of the 1 year of Ron Zook where he was getting 4 and 5 star guys. Brett Bielema is building guys that fit his system, getting guys that really fit the mold of Big Ten football. And as much as that has changed over the years, it kind of remains the same. Remain strong in the trenches, have a solid run game, and now have a quality quarterback, and that's what Illinois has currently. It's a sight to behold.
And people are starting to notice. I was watching this morning the Big Ten Huddle show on YouTube, and the topic was five Big Ten teams that are going to have better records than last year, and five Big Ten teams that are going to have worse records than last year. Last year, meaning the one that was just completed. And I was sure, 100% sure that Illinois would fall in the category of having worse record next season, and we weren't. In fact, we were in an honorable mention of finishing with a better record next year than from winning 9 games in the regular season and 10 games this year. Honorable mention to go beyond that, and he cited 18 of the starters from that bowl game now coming back, a schedule that really doesn't look all that intimidating, and a senior year quarterback. It's
Yeah,
things are looking up.
absolutely. I mean, look, go through the schedule really quick with us: Western Illinois, Duke, Western Michigan, Indiana, USC, Purdue, Ohio State, Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. I can only see maybe 2 losses on this schedule, and this is crazy for me to think of, for me to even say before the season, after the years of being like, man, maybe 6-6. Hey, let's do it. No, like, this is a team that has aspirations of a college football playoff. I can see Ohio State being a loss, and other than that, you should be favored or within a minus, within a plus like 3.5 point spread of everything else. And if you're able to take care of business at home, then you are doing pretty good. And I think that Indiana game will be a toss up. They're losing a lot of portal talent as well. So there is a huge opportunity here. And if the Big Ten keeps flexing its muscles and say, hey, we want more spots in this college football playoff coming up, then hey, maybe that could be a situation that happens where Illinois gets into that playoff just because of the might of the Big Ten and what they've done this year in the college football playoff. It shouldn't deny Illinois from that spot next year if they are even 3 losses.
And we should all be rooting for the Ohio State Buckeyes to win the national championship, because then we can go back to back seasons with defeating the current national champion, and I'd be all for that. But like you said, I think I see right now, gun to my head, 2 losses. Ohio State's going to be tough to beat. All jokes aside, going to Washington's going to be tough. But Philip, again, always does make good points. He made the point that I wanted to bring up just now. I want to beat the brakes off of Indiana. And whether this is deserved or not, I really feel like Illinois didn't get the credit that they deserve. And I had Big Ten Ted on the Locked On Illini saying exactly this, that this was one of the most overlooked 10-3 seasons in college football history, because Indiana soaked up all that energy. And I would like nothing more than next year to just go to Indiana and put a whooping on them and just kind of show them, hey, that was cute what you guys did last year. We didn't get a chance to play last season. It's not quite the same team, but we're just kind of giving you a taste of why you should be lucky we didn't play last year.
I really can't wait to see the head games that Brett Bielema tries to put on Kurt Signetti before the game and during the game. After what I've seen with Shane Beamer, and seeing the fake ego that Kurt Signetti has over one great season in his time as a Power Four coach, Brett Bielema's going to be like, "Come on, dude, you're done. That was fun. That was cute." But this is how sustainability looks like in the Big Ten. And Kurt Signetti, great year, but Brett Bielema is gonna whoop that butt next year. I think that's kind of where it's at. But let's wrap up with this, Sonny. We're an hour in. give your predictions for the college football playoff semifinals. We have Penn State, Notre Dame coming up here in about 15 minutes, and then Ohio State, Texas tomorrow, which you are in Austin, Texas, so you are a local. How's the mood in Austin for this game?
It's interesting because my wife is a Buckeye. Like she got her undergrad degree from Ohio State, but the family that surrounds me here in Austin now is obviously Longhorn fans, and my wife is actually flying in later on tonight so that we can watch the game tomorrow night with family. It's going to be fun. I unfortunately, well, whatever. Like I've got to support the Big Ten, so I'll have that Ohio State sweatshirt on just to make sure my wife doesn't get jumped by her cousins. But I don't think anyone's beating Ohio State, and that goes for the next round as well. I think it's going to be a Notre Dame Ohio State matchup, and I just think I said it before. Ohio State's the best team in the country. I continue to believe Ohio State's the best team in the country. Ohio State simply just has a Michigan problem. And it's just one of those where Michigan is not in the Final Four. If Michigan, as a 6-6 team, was in the playoff right now, going up against Ohio State, who just beat the drums off of Oregon, I'd predict Michigan because until Ohio State proves to me that they can beat Michigan, I won't believe it. But put any other team across the field from the Buckeyes, I think Ohio State's going to win, and I think they're going to win comfortably.
Yeah, I think Ohio State is the easy answer there against Texas. Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback, but he's not good enough to control that Ohio State defense. And you look at that Ohio State offense, weapons galore. I talked about the role players of Illinois basketball being stars on some of the lower tier Big Ten teams. I think some of those role players on Ohio State would be stars on a lot of good college football teams, including Illinois. So I think that's just where the talent's at, and Will Howard just has to not be sacked like he hasn't been in the college football playoff so far. And I think Penn State just narrowly edges Notre Dame. I think it comes down to a great pass rush opportunity on third down. I think Abdul Carter gets home, and that's kind of how Riley Leonard and Notre Dame season ends, is at the hands of that great Penn State pass rush. And then we'll see Penn State, Ohio State in the championship, and I think Ohio State wins because James Franklin, he has a Michigan and an Ohio State problem. And so he's next up on the list of having multiple schools as a problem. And I think that's kind of where this season ends.
I would not. I mean, Big Ten versus Big Ten in the national championship, like that would not upset me at all. Really just humbling that national narrative of every year SEC, SEC. Seeing the final two being Big Ten teams. I would not complain. I would love to see it, and for now, go Buckeyes. We'll see what happens.
And I think there would be another 90 million dispersed to the 18 Big Ten schools. So
I'll
Illinois
take
would
it.
be a benefactor there. Sonny, this was a great episode. Talked a lot about Illinois Penn State. If you missed it earlier on in the episode, talked a little bit about Illinois football's trajectory this offseason. And yes, we'll be back to talk more transfer portal, high school recruiting, and of course Illinois basketball on the court. This has been Illini Cast, part of the Armchair Illini Network. Sonny, ILL,
I and I.
thank you so much.